Richard Jones stepped out of his modest charcoal gray Hyundai Tucson and into the sun-drenched parking lot of a luxury auto dealership nestled in the northern hills of West Bridge, a city known more for its venture capital kings and art collectors than for second chances. The sleek glass-front building before him shimmered in the late morning sun. Above the wide double doors gleamed a polished sign, Everett Looks Motors. The letters were bold, clean, and unapologetically silver, like everything else inside. Richard squinted up at it, then caught his reflection in the towering glass panels that stretched 3 stories high. Gray hoodie. Black joggers. Faded Air Max sneakers. His beard was trimmed but unstyled, his eyes hidden behind cheap, scratched-up sunglasses. He looked like someone on a casual coffee run, maybe a delivery driver off duty. Definitely not the kind of man who walked into a place like this to buy a car, especially not a machine that started at $190,000. But appearances were always part of the test. Inside, the hum of low jazz trickled from invisible speakers, blending with the sound of muffled conversations and perfectly polished shoes on tile floors. Each luxury vehicle was positioned like a sculpture. A Ferrari 296 GTB in searing red, a Lamborghini Huracan with doors like wings, and in the far corner, a gleaming obsidian Aston Martin DB12, the price tag inconspicuously hidden but very much implied. Richard pushed open the glass doors and stepped inside. Immediately, eyes flicked toward him, brief glances, subtle once-overs. Judgments dressed in courtesy. At the reception desk stood a woman whose posture was so straight it could cut glass. Her suit was navy, custom-tailored to perfection. A nameplate rested on the edge of the marble counter, C. Halbrook, sales manager. She noticed him instantly. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Excuse me," she said, approaching with practiced grace and a clipboard clutched like a verdict. "Can I help you?" "Just looking," Richard replied casually, eyes sweeping the room. "Thinking about an upgrade." She followed his gaze, though not quite believing it. "We deal exclusively in high-performance, premium-class vehicles here," she said, her voice soft but clipped. "Everything you see requires pre-qualification before we can begin the purchasing process." Richard turned his head slightly, taking in the pristine floor, the glass walls, the cars that cost more than most homes. "So you are saying I should be somewhere else?" he asked, a hint of amusement in his voice. She tilted her head, the clipboard rising slightly. "I'm simply suggesting that other dealerships may offer more flexible options. Certified pre-owned inventory. Competitive leasing plans. You understand?" He smiled. "You mean cheaper?" She didn't smile back. "More accessible," she corrected. "And what about that Aston Martin over there?" He pointed to the black DB12. "What's the starting number?" She hesitated, almost as if she wanted to change the subject. "That model starts at $190,000. Before optional upgrades, of course." Richard nodded slowly, as if considering it. "Not bad." Her arms folded, though the clipboard remained in place like a barrier. "Sir, without an appointment or documentation of financials, we can't authorize any test drives. However, I'd be happy to give you a brochure." Richard laughed softly. "What if I spoke to the owner? Maybe they can make an exception." Her eyes narrowed. "The owner doesn't meet with walk-ins. They're extremely busy." "I'll call them myself, then." "I'm sorry." He pulled out his phone. "Yeah," he said after a few seconds of scrolling. "It's time. I'm at the West Bridge location. Come on by." He hung up, slipped the phone back into his hoodie pocket, and offered her a calm smile. "They'll be here in a few." By now, half the staff was watching from behind their desks. 2 young men by the espresso machine leaned in to whisper. Someone from the finance office peeked around the corner. Tension swirled in the air like static. Christina Halbrook tried to regain her composure. "Who exactly did you call?" Richard didn't answer. Minutes passed. And then, the glass doors whispered open. A tall man in a navy suit entered the room with purposeful strides. Eyes sharp. Confident. He scanned the room until they landed on Richard, and instantly, his face lit up. "Mr. Jones," he exclaimed, walking over briskly. "Always a pleasure." They shook hands like old friends. "Thanks for coming, Ellis," Richard said smoothly. Ellis Morris, regional director of Everett Holdings, turned to the stunned crowd of employees. "Christina," he said, his voice even. "I see you've met our new majority owner." She stared at him, blinking once. Twice. I didn't know. I thought he was." "What?" Richard asked calmly. "A mistake? Lost?" She looked down. "I didn't mean offense, Mr. Jones. I had no idea." "No," Richard interrupted. "You didn't. But that's the point." Ellis gestured. "Let's take this to the conference room." The entire front desk staff watched them walk toward the spiral staircase that led to the glass-encased boardroom above. No one spoke. No one breathed. Inside the conference room, sunlight poured in through the walls. A long oak table sat in the center, surrounded by leather chairs. Christina sat with her hands folded in her lap, her lips pressed tightly. Around her were 6 other sales reps, a finance manager, and a customer service lead. Richard remained standing. "I came in today dressed the way I did for a reason," he began. His voice wasn't angry. It was measured. Controlled. But there was power in its steadiness. "I wanted to see what kind of service people received when you think no one important is watching." He paused, letting the silence draw tight. "And I saw it. I saw the glances. The assumptions. I saw how someone was sized up not by who they were, but by what they wore. What they looked like." Justin, the youngest salesperson, raised his hand sheepishly. "Mr. Jones, I think most of us try to be respectful. Sometimes, we just don't know, how to tell if someone's serious." Richard nodded. "That's fair. You can't always know. But when you don't know, you default to respect. Always." He let that hang in the air. "This dealership doesn't just sell cars. It sells identity. It sells confidence. And if someone walks through these doors and gets told without a word that they don't belong, that's not just bad business. That's dangerous." He turned to Christina. "You've been here how long?" 10 years, she said softly. "You've probably sold more cars than anyone else here." "I'd like to think so." "And yet, today, you failed the simplest test of leadership, to see the person in front of you." She swallowed, then whispered, "You're right. Are you willing to change that?" "Yes," she said immediately. "I am." "Good," he said. "Because I don't believe in canceling people. I believe in accountability. And opportunity." He looked to Ellis. "Starting next week, I want mandatory culture and empathy training across every location. We serve people, all people." "Understood," Ellis said. "I also want quarterly, mystery guest, evaluations. We're going to test our team the way the real world does." There were nods around the table. "Christina," Richard said, turning back to her. "You've got experience. And influence. So I'm asking you to lead this change. Not because you have something to prove to me, but because you have something to prove to everyone who walks in here." She stood, slowly. "I will. I promise." He nodded. "Then let's do better. All of us." The meeting ended without applause. No dramatic exits. Just quiet reflection. Growth. Understanding. Back downstairs, Richard wandered past the line of supercars once more. A few employees now stood near him, not at a distance, but beside him. Justin approached with nervous energy. "Mr. Jones," he said. "Can I just say, that was powerful." "Thank you." Richard smiled. "You're welcome. And it's Richard." Justin grinned. "Richard. Got it." As Richard stepped outside, the afternoon sun painted the lot in warm gold. The air smelled of pavement and possibility. He opened the door to his Tucson and paused, staring back at the building. It was still the same. But everything inside had shifted. He got in, adjusted the mirror, and looked not at his reflection, but at the glass walls behind him. There had been a time when no one opened doors for him. When people saw his hoodie and crossed the street. When he'd been rejected for jobs, apartments, and loans because of the way he looked. Now, he owned the building they once told him he didn't belong in. He didn't need applause. He didn't need recognition. What he had was the power to change what came next. And that was a kind of luxury no car could ever match.